So what a class is, this is the declaration of a class. And a class is basically just an empty box like this one. As you can see here, it's empty, it doesn't have anything inside it. We can name it anything we want. Let's name it box. And that's what a class basically is. It's very simple. And a box can have attributes, like as we can see here, this box is made of cardboard. We can have like an attribute of it that can be string as an example, and for simplicity's sake we're just gonna name it type equals cardboard. Yeah, now this box, for this box class we have decided that the type of it is cardboard, as we can see in the picture. And what a box can do is we can have functions inside this class where each function has a certain responsibility or a certain process it's going to do. So if we say that this box can be closed, so we can declare a function to check if the box is closed or opened as an example. We need a new attribute for that class to check if it's actually opened or closed, because now in this type of box we don't really have any sort of attribute or any sort of state of that box. So we have no idea what to do. Like if we just say as an example we have a closed box or open box. In programming you don't really know what is an opened or closed without any sort of variable that we can change. So we need to declare a new variable called opened as an example, and we can set it to false. Here we can add to check if the box is closed. We need to change the type of the function because now we need to return something. So if we really think about it, what does it mean if the box is closed as an example? If opened, so we check if the box is opened, what do we return? We can return just true, and we return true if it's not opened. We don't need an else statement, because if you think about it, it will go inside this if statement if the box is opened. Else it will return true anyway without an else statement. And here we can have as an example, if opened, return true, and the same thing, return false. And we need to change the return type of the function to bool. So now, as you can see, it's not very smart to do it this way. So instead of doing this, you just have one of them. It's enough to check if the box is opened or closed with only one function. We don't need another function to check if it's open, because if it's not closed, it means it's open. Okay, let's circle back to classes and focus only on classes now. So each attribute can be either public or private. And public attributes are accessible to everyone who instantiate an object of that class. And private ones are only accessible inside the class itself. And we have protected, let's say sealed, and let's change it to boolean. So now when we instantiate an object of that class, let's say here we have instantiated an object of that class, and now we can access its members inside functions. Let's say update or whatever. So what we want to access, let's try and access opened. As we can see, we can't really access it because it's private. And sealed box also, we can't really access it because it's protected. What we can access is the public one, which is type box.type. We can change it to something else like plastic. And now if we want to check if it's opened or closed, we can see if it's... And as you can see, we can't really access it because we didn't even declare if it's private or public or protected. So if we just add it as a public, now we should be able to access it here. And yeah, we can access it here inside, and we can check if it's closed or not. And to make it more understandable, when we can change it to is opened maybe, because it matches the attribute if it was opened. And if it's opened, we return true instead, and here we return false. But now if you think about it, how do we measure how do we open or close the box? Well, since the opened attribute is false or is private, we need to change it inside this. And what we usually do is we have setters and getters inside each class, which looks like this. Set is opened, and we take a boolean and we take the opened attribute and we set it as the one we passed in. And in that way, we'd have changed the attribute inside the class, the private attribute of that class. And in order to get, and this one is basically a getter. So now we have basically a getter function and a setter function. You can name it if you want, get is opened. And to have more consistent naming, we can just say is opened instead of opened. And in that way we have, and in the getter function we are not really returning, we are like conditionally returning the value. We're not really returning the value of it. So we just need to now to return is opened. And now in our main class we can change the state of the box if it's open or if it's closed. Since the default one is false, so we can change it to true. And now so you guys can see what's happening, I added the debug logs so we can check the states and see how the states changes after we apply the setters and getters. And so first we have the box type is cardboard and box is opened is false. And then after changing the states, we have box type plastic, box is opened, true. And that's the basic idea of a class. It is used to protect the integrity of the attribute of it and to not let other part of the application to manipulate that object we have and make it more robust. And that was the introduction of classes. We're gonna dive deeper inside them, but now I wanted to keep it short so to not make it overwhelming.